Mindy, whatever you want, we can start.
Very good. Okay. Thank you, Hernan. Well, hello, everyone. It's good to see familiar faces and new faces. So glad that you all could make it today. My name is Mindy Lebrecq, and I am so happy to welcome you on behalf of the Charles F. Kettering Foundation to this dialogue on democratic participation and collaboration between the Buenos Aires city government and the Auckland Council. I want to, first of all, extend a warm thanks for the work today that you'll do on behalf of our Vice President and Director of International Programs, Maxine Thomas, who will be listening on the call. And also a warm welcome on behalf of our President and CEO, Sharon Davies. They are traveling in Japan this week, so the time change is a little tricky to navigate. Again, I want to thank each and every one of you for taking time to join these Zoom conversations today on global experience in democratic participation and collaboration. And I want to especially thank Hernan and Eddie and their teams for organizing us today and making this happen, as well as Sarah Dom and Bettina Wright from the foundation, whose work on our international programs is absolutely critical. And I know this work stemmed from a visit in August, and you all made plans, and here we are. And so it's wonderful to see the work in action. So that's wonderful. And I know many of you are not familiar with the Kettering Foundation's work. So I'll just say a few words about our organization and work. Charles F. Kettering founded the organization in 1927, actually. We are quickly approaching our 100-year anniversary. He was one of the most prolific inventors and innovators of his generation. And we can actually thank him for the automatic car starter. So when you get in your cars and you start them up, Charles Kettering was a part of that, that innovation. And he was someone who was always innovating and learning, and his curiosity was unmatched. And over the last 40 years or so, the Kettering Foundation has been focused on citizen-centered democracy, and doing that through citizen-to-citizen engagement, citizen to government engagement, and as well as citizen to institution engagement. And so we've worked with, government entities, higher education, public education, communities, but all with a citizen focus. And, as we look ahead, we have so much to build on as we look ahead at the future of our work, especially with our international network of colleagues. And, with the rise of authoritarianism and polarization, democracy is at risk around the world. The threats are real and they're palpable. We see them in our everyday work and lives. And so at the foundation, we're thinking about how we can work to fight against the threats to democracy today. And how we can expand the global network of innovators like you who are working to save democracy around the world. It's very important work that you're doing today. You're an important part of that work of democracy. And we just wanted to say that the initiative and actions that you're taking and meeting and collaborating and innovating are an important step in addressing those threats globally. And as we begin the conversation today, I wanted to just quickly share a quote from our founder, Charles Kettering. He said that our imagination is the only limit to what we can hope to have in the future. And so, as we go through the dialogue and collaboration today, our imagination is the only limit, and you know, working through citizen participation and understanding how citizen can be more active in democracy, democracy where we all are, is such an important initiative to take up. And with that introduction to the foundation, I will get us started, and we can, I'll turn the program over to my colleagues, Eddie and Hernan, so that they can get us started today. And I want to sincerely thank you for the opportunity to be with you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mindy. It's great to have you here and the Kettering Foundation as a main support of all this initiative, and welcome everyone. For us, it's great to start this global conversation. My name is Hernan Charosky. I'm the coordinator of Dialogando Buenos Aires and the Dialogue and Collaborative Public Policies Team, el equipo de diálogo y políticas públicas colaborativas del gobierno de la ciudad de Buenos Aires. And as Mindy said, with Eddie, we started this conversation also very concerned around the decay of the public debate, and with the idea of starting a series of exchanges around citizen democratic participation as part of the public policy process, as a way of enhancing the public conversation and collaborating with the strengthening of democracy in these difficult times. That was in August when Kettering Foundation organized a huge international meeting here in Buenos Aires, and as a part of that meeting, we had a workshop here in the government of the city of Buenos Aires, and that was the beginning of the idea of what we are doing today here, which is exchanging experiences of public offices, public officials, promoting democratic participation as a part of the public policy cycle. We are going to have a three-part meeting today. The first part will be a presentation from the city of Buenos Aires, from a series of areas which I'm going to present in a moment. That will be 40 minutes, 10 minutes each area. Then we will have the same structure for Auckland City Council, another 40 minutes from 4 different areas from Auckland, and then we will have more or less 30 minutes for exchanges, conversation, Q&As, and whatever we think could be useful to think our next steps in this conversation. So I'm going to present the areas and the people from before. Yeah. So we have from the General Directorate of Institutional Quality and Open Government, we have Tamara Lasnik. Tamara is the manager of Institutional Quality and Open Government. She's a lawyer and a master of public policy and administration. And we also have the Undersecretary of Institutional Relations, along with the Directorate of Relations with the Civil Society and Public Entities, and representing this office is Maria Angione. Maria is also a lawyer. Then we will have me, I think, that's right. Yeah, we will have me. My name is Hernan Charosky, as I said, presenting the experience of Dialogando Buenos Aires in the Ministry of Government of the City of Buenos Aires. And then we will have from the Undersecretary of Communication and Citizen Participation, Antonella Tozzo, manager of participatory communication with a degree in international relations, and she's been working in this area for more than 80 years. And I did it a little short so everybody of us can speak as fast as we can. So I would ask Tamara to start with, no, I have to ask Eddie first, don't I?
It's okay, we can go first with CSBA and then Eddie, you'll do the same with New Zealand, right? Or you want to present everyone now? Same.
That's fine. You go right ahead,
Okay.
Hernan. My caffeine has not kicked in. So Hernan, please keep going. It'll kick in when you're finished. I'll introduce our people.
Fantastic. So we start with our presentations, and in our order, we have Tamara first.
So thank you. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. I will present, give me a second to share my screen. Well, thank you, Hernan, for the organization and convocation to this activity, and all the Kettering Foundation for this sharing experience opportunity. Well, the idea of this presentation is to share with you some of the initiatives that we developed from the Open Government team of the city of Buenos Aires. And I'm having some issues with my computer. Well, I always like to start with a little bit about the story and the past of Buenos Aires in this agenda, because I think that open government is not only or just some initiative or project, it's a way of govern. So I think that we have to see the big picture about how a government starts and how can go with this kind of vision. So here in Buenos Aires, we started with a lot of a very big access to information and open data policy, and with some normatives and with the Access to Information Act and some decrees about open data, the creation of our open data portal, we consolidate a culture of transparency and open government. So for me, this is very important, because with this institutional quality, institutional culture, we can do what we are doing now. So this path started a lot of years ago, and as we said, we started with a lot of with a very important information and open data policy, and then we passed from this information disclosure to an open government ecosystem. So first we have for me, it's like we pass from some specific initiative to a vision about open government. And so now we are able to have a transversal vision of open government that allows us to do to develop projects about, for example, not only open data, but also about public works, open budget, open state forum. So now we have a complete vision of how to do open government. And this is for us, this the circle is like the ecosystem, where it's not only we are not only part the areas about transparency and access to information, but also the specific areas of gender diversity, budget, climate change. So we construct a community of open government inside of the government. And then one of the most important projects for us is the participation in the Open Government Partnership. I don't know if you know this organization, but OGP, or Open Government Partnership, is an international organization that promotes transparency, participation, and innovation in local governments and in countries. And being part for these organizations allows us to have this to transform these little initiatives in a way to governance. So during this time, we have presented 3 action plans with more than 20 commitments, yes, alongside different members of civil society, academic sector, and private sector. And this partnership allows us to start to talk and to open doors in different areas of the government, because sometimes it's very difficult to ask for different areas to be part of this vision if they are not really part of that. So Open Government Partnership is like a community where all the areas are part, and they develop their commitments for civil society. And during these years, we developed commitments about gender diversity, climate change, digital inclusion, mobility, innovation, and we work with the other branches of the state, because we believe in an open state vision, not only an open government vision. So for us, this project is very important because, as I said, allows us to keep working and to do like a deeply work inside of the government. And because for me, open government is not only to open the information, but also to change the institutional culture. So one of the other projects that is like very important for us is Buenos Aires Cambio Climático, or BEA, Buenos Aires Climate Action. That is a platform made by citizens and NGOs or civil society organizations. And it's a platform that publish open data, do accountability, and invite the citizen to participate in the climate action. And one of the most relevant things about this initiative, and it is why I am telling you about this, is that this platform is a platform for users, made by users, because all the creation of this portal was part of a co-creation process where we call and we ask to citizens, to civil society, to academic, and to private sector to tell us which information they need, which information is useful to do influence in public policies, to make diagnosis about the climate change in the city. So for us, it's one of the most important projects because of that, because it's a project that we do we prepare all the completely cycle of a public policy with the civil society and the citizens. And through this platform, we are able to share with the citizens what we are doing, how is the management of the climate action in the city, and which are the priorities on the governance of this agenda. So this is very interesting also because nowadays the climate change is a very important issue for not only for the countries, but also and more important to the cities. So for us, it was very interesting to work alongside with this kind of actors. And the other thing that is very interesting about this project is that we didn't launch the website and leave that how it is. We are in constant evolution, and we're working every day with civil society and with the users of the information to understand how we can improve the quality of the information and the availability of the information. And during the last year, we published we published the interactive action plan of climate change of the city, so people can see in an easy way, not only in open data like that is very technical information, but also in this kind of visualizations that shows with a map or with different images what we are doing and how we are advancing in the action plan of the city. So this platform is in constantly movement because we know that climate change is one of the priorities of the government and for the citizens. And the last thing about this same platform is the newest project that, with the support of C40 cities, some months ago, we published the green job indicators. That is a tool to measure how many green jobs we have in the city and how is the situation to understand how to improve the number of green jobs. Because we, from Buenos Aires, we think that we have to use the data not only to transparent the management of the city, but also to understand how to do better public policy. So this information is very useful for the citizen, or the maybe not the common citizen, but also more like the academic sector or society. But for us to the decision-making process, it's very important to have these numbers. So for me, it's a very good example of how we are using not the data only to show the data, but also to make diagnosis, to change our way to do public policy, to design public policy. So well,
Dos minutos, Tamara.
Yes, I'm finishing.
Great.
Yes, I practice the time. So well, this is some of our initiatives. It's not all the work that we do, but I wanted to share these two projects because for me are more like the most representatives about how we work in our team. But well, I'm here for questions, or if you want to know about other projects, here I am. And thank you again.
Gracias, Tamara. Now we have Maria Angione, don't we? Yep. Maria.
Good afternoon, good morning. Thank you for you inviting us to share our experience with the government of the city of Buenos Aires. My name is Maria Angione. I am an operational manager and a team member of the Undersecretary of Institutional Relations. Our leader, all right. Our leader at the Undersecretary is Carmen Bochedo. This area was created in December 2021 in order to focus on the relationship between the government and our community. Carmen has a large experience as a legislator and was the first woman to be the vice president of the local legislative entity. It is worth mentioning that she started her career in the civil society sector, and he was being a member and president for a non-profit organization for 30 years. Our main task is to develop and maintain good relationships with corporates, public entities, and civil society organizations. We understand that we need to provide a channel for our community to listen to and address their needs. We carry out a social agenda to keep in contact and support the main civil society organizations that develop their activities in Buenos Aires. For that purpose, we developed 4 programs I would like to introduce. 1, Institutional Empowerment Network for NGOs. 2, Commemorations and Tributes in Buenos Aires. 3, Women Leadership to address gender equality and women's empowerment. 4, Youth Perspective to promote the youth agenda and foster young entrepreneurs. Institutional Empowerment Network. We seek to reinforce institutional capacities in civil society organizations so that they can achieve a greater impact in the provision of goods and service to the community. We are engaged in several activities. Online course. We have provided virtual training on several issues such as best practice in legal and tax obligations, customer relationships management for NGOs, and international cooperation and fundraising. So far, we have reached more than 700 participants. Workshop with NGOs in alliance with RACI and AEDROS. We organized workshops in order to discuss the status of NGOs and identify topics of interest for training and future collaborations. As coming milestone, we are promoting a digital skills course in our coded neighborhood finance by the Trust of America. Urban agriculture workshop for NGOs. This program is aimed at providing knowledge and necessary tools and supplies for the development of urban farming in target areas, as shelters or community centers with food programs. We are implementing 6 urban gardens, which cover more than 50 square meters of farmable land. DialogandoBA with NGOs, in order to discuss these thematic roundtables, the issues that face non-profit organizations and their possible solutions in terms of legislation and public policies. Commemoration of Buenos Aires. We commemorate our national dates through institutional events with the education community and some organizations to pay tribute to historical personalities and significant events that have contributed to the building of our nation. Malvinas, 40th anniversary. We honor the Veterans Day and Memorial Day of the fallen in Malvinas War with a series of activities in collaboration with different government areas. Women leadership. The purpose of this program is to be the space for dialogue and sharing experience in order to promote gender mainstreaming. Women leadership is centered in women economic autonomy. We discussed several issues such as labor participation, wage gap, access to decision-making position, work-life balance, and care policy. We host an international edition within the scope of C40, the World Mayor Summit with women mayors from different cities that lead the environmental agenda worldwide to address the climate crisis. We also have a newsletter where we share the conclusion of every workshop and a new section where we congratulate outstanding women whenever they achieve a goal in their careers. Youth Perspective promotes an entrepreneurial culture among young people. We host massive events and also have a digital edition for social media. We make young reference stories visible and encourage young people to become protagonists of the public agenda. Thank you very much. It has been a pleasure sharing our work with you. If you want to learn more about our activities, you can follow our social media where we post all the news. I especially want to thank Kettering Foundation for inviting us to this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. So far we had open government and open data, civil society, and now we are going to present our social innovation technology, which is a program called Dialogando Buenos Aires.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Aman. Mary, I need you to stop sharing your presentation so I can. Thank you.
María. ¿Nos escuchás, María? Ahí está. Great. So, Dialogando Buenos Aires, DialogandoBA, as you see there, is a program. It's a program from, anda la primera, from the Dialogue and Collaborative Public Policies team, which is part of the Ministry of Government of the City Government of Buenos Aires. Yes. Dialogando Buenos Aires, next. Dialogando Buenos Aires has been designed with the idea both of building consensus, but also enhancing the quality of dissent. So the dissent is as important as the consensus. For that, we organize workshops in which pluralism and the diversity of voices is central, in order not only to prevent and resolve conflicts, but also to feed the policy that we are discussing at any time with the different visions and even the conflicts that might be part of that process. We try to offer innovative solutions for different areas of the government of the city of Buenos Aires, and we try to disseminate our knowledge and our capacity of embracing the diversity and even the conflict as a part of the conversation for the design of public policy across the government of the city of Buenos Aires, and that's why we train other areas to do the same thing that we do. Next. So we think that public conversation is not only a privilege of the legislative, it's not only a privilege of the media, but it is also an activity that gives legitimacy, but also strength to the design and the implementation of public policy. So identifying dissent and making this dissent better in its terms, in the way in which it's talked, the way in which consensus is a goal, but it's not an absolute goal. We have to cohabit, to coexist with dissent in better terms than we usually do, in order to have public policies that not only are based on the consensus, but also can take account of the dissent. When we do our workshops, of course, we try to discover and to be clear for everybody about all the consensus that we can find and that are usually hidden by the problems, the noise in the public conversation, but also overcoming the noise also means to give a better version of the dissent. Next. So some examples of what we worked through the 6 years that this program has been working. The first one, I will translate, Clean City Responsible Electoral Campaign, is an example of a deliberative process with the political parties of the city of Buenos Aires aimed at having cleaner electoral campaigns in terms of, for example, the painting of walls, the vandalization of the public space, etc. So with this program, we had a great result, as you see, and there was a 95% of reduction of the vandalization. Of course, we can't claim the whole credit for this 95%, but it was at the same time. Going to a very different kind of topic, we worked with the civil registry of the city of Buenos Aires when they had to adapt their administrative norms to a reform of the civil code of Argentina, which had some innovations in terms of techniques for assisted fertilization, of egalitarian marriage, of adoption. So they had several topics to work on related to adapting their norms in these areas. For example, in the techniques of assisted fertilization, everything related to egalitarian marriage, egalitarian couples, and the inscription of newborns. That was something that had to be adapted to the new legislation, and it had a very tense public conversation between the defendants of LGBT rights and certain sectors, more conservatives of the society, and we had them all together in a series of workshops that permitted the civil registry to write new norms that were accepted by everybody. Let's go next. I can give more examples later. So so far, we had more than 4,000 participants in our workshops. We have, well, all these numbers you can see. And I will give you a very short idea of the sequence of our work. First of all, when we start a new agenda, that can be our initiative. We are working, for example, with the private sector in an initiative about integrity and in the relationship in between the public sector and the government of the city of Buenos Aires. But at other times, as the example of the civil registry, it can be another area that brings us the problem to work. And we start together the mapping of the stakeholders in order to know the audience we have to work with, what are the speakers that could be interesting and also could be a reflect of the diversity of opinions to invite to an event. We organize the dialogue forums in which the speakers have a panel activity as a first part, but then we have a workshop, properly speaking, in tables of 10 to 12 people with moderators and note takers from our team. But when it is a demand from another area of the city of Buenos Aires, they also provide moderators and note takers that we train especially for the event. The groups working in these tables of 10 to 12 people decide who's going to be the spokesperson. And we have a sharing of conclusion, which allows us to write notes, minute notes, and after a synthesis document that is validated by all the participants. And usually it takes part of the policy design process that we are working on in each case. So some of the areas we are working this year, we worked with the Human Rights Undersecretary related to digital coexistence, digital bullying, and digital violence. We worked with the private sector in human rights and integrity. The fourth one, the professional training thing, future of work, beyond the topic, which is related to how to prepare people for the changes in the labor market. The interesting thing is that we did that calling all the political parties in the opposition and allies of the government to have a conversation in which all the parties can agree in a roadmap about how to enhance the professional training, how to adapt better the workforce to the changes in the labor market. And that in Argentina, I don't know in New Zealand, but that in Argentina sounds crazy because this is a very polarized country in which that was unimaginable. And we did that working with the think tanks of each of the parties of the political system. Next. Thank you. So now we have Antonella.
I'm going to share. It's okay. Is that okay? Because I can't see. Can you all see?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So, hi, my name is Antonella. I'm the manager of participatory communication, and I work at the Department of Citizen Participation. So, why and what are we doing citizen participation here in the government of Buenos Aires? First of all, we believe that democratic governments should incorporate the voices of the neighbors in order to find more democratic solutions to their projects or public policy designing. So each device that we have for citizen participation, we are doing it understanding that we have to listen to the citizens, we have to open the government, we have to be more innovative in the designing of public policy, and we have to reduce some conflicts that can arise from some projects. How do we do that? We try to guarantee what we call a virtuous cycle. So we work for the different areas of the government. Every time they want to design a public policy, they ask us which is the best way to introduce the vision and the voices of the neighbors. We design a customized plan for each of those areas in order to understand that there is people that want to participate only making a click, and there is people that want to get more involved in citizen participation and that they want to come to a meeting. With that citizen participation menu, we guarantee that people feel close to us. And we also have a proximity plan that we have designed to offer devices involving government officials and the citizens, so that they don't see those government officials so far away, and then they can reach them in a very easy way. Once people start to get involved and participating, they begin to have confidence in what the government is offering, and they begin to trust us. And if we gain that they trust us, the involvement gets deeper and deeper. And the result of that virtuous cycle will be more efficient public policies. How do we do that? So I talked about that we have a citizen participation and proximity plan that is based on two pillars. One of them is this proximity plan with devices regarding government officials and citizens, and then devices that are only for citizens that I will talk to you in a little while. And both of these pillars are based on a strategic communication. That strategic communication for us is based on the concept of an iceberg. So we all know what an iceberg is, but I don't know if you have heard about this concept in communication. For those that haven't, I'm going to tell you what we see from an iceberg, it's what is on the top of it. But what we can't see on the iceberg, it's what is underneath. So for example, we are doing a meeting with neighbors because there is a construction work going to start. What we have at the end of the iceberg is the potential scoop, all the people that lives in that neighbor, and we are going to reach that people through a multiple channels of communication, because we don't want to get citizens where they are not. We want to get to them where they are. So we have social media communication strategies. We have what is called IVR, that will be an automatic message from a government official telling with its name that he or she is going to be in that neighbor next week and that he or she wants to invite that person to a meeting. We have a call center. We have a very big team that do communication on field, that it's giving some flyers to people on the streets on areas that are very well known because there are many pedestrians, and we try to reach there people that it's elder than 60 years old, that maybe they are not so familiar with the internet. We also have mailing campaigns. So from that scope, we will send, for example, as says here, an amount of emails. We then have an open rate of that emails, and then we have some clicks. We also do that with social media, the real scoop of the social media, the clicks that people make on that publication, and the impressions. That is what we all can see, but that is happening. People is knowing what are we doing and how we are offering citizen participation devices. What we actually can see for a meeting, it's all the people that it's registered and those 48 participants. But those are not the only ones, but all what is underneath of the iceberg counts. It's very important for us, because then people start to tell their neighbor or their family parents or whatever what is going on if they want to participate also. So now I'm going to tell you about some devices that we use at citizen participation. We have meeting with neighbors where we do information meetings, we do ideathons, we try to reduce some conflicts. We have the experiences. These will be touristic experiences that are not open for the public. but that we want people to have an experience. For example, here is a very popular monument that is called Obelisco. So we offer people to go to the top of the Obelisco and see the views there. That is something that is not open for the public. And we also, people that is interested in environment, we invite them to the recycle plant at the government of the city that it's not open for the public. And that was a very interesting experience that people started to understand a better ways to recycle. Then we have VA volunteers. We articulate with neighbors with different areas of government and civil society to participate of different actions that the government offer. Then we have opinion survey to understand the citizen perception, experiences, and fears regarding a subject. For example, we ask all the women living in the city which were the best ways of transport that they choose each day. Participated over 8,000 women. That's a lot for our kind of service. And we also have voting devices. We ask people if they agree or not agree with some decisions that we take at a government level. For example, if they agree or not with traveling with their pets in the underground. About our proximity plan, we have different practices. We also have meeting with neighbors, but this is a different event. Here, the official starts the meeting. The government officials start the meeting. For example, our mayor, he talks to the people from a specific neighbor. He asks them what things are not working at the neighbor, what can the city do better. We also have thematic talks. That's a meeting with personalities from culture, art, sports, and some general interests. We talk about their trajectory, and people get very interested in asking those persons that are talking many questions. We also have an interesting device that it's called Meet with Your Police. Security here at the government of Buenos Aires is a topic that it's very popular. People is very concerned about security. So once a month, all the police stations open their doors and people go to the closest police stations that they have at their neighbors and try to get that proximity with police officers. And we also have walking along the streets. That's when some government officials walk through open air shopping centers, slums, or even the streets and get into the stores and talk with people about how is the work doing, what can we improve from the point of view of government. And now to go to some projects, specific projects. About proximity plan, first I'm going to give you some numbers that it's interested since we started here at the Citizen Participation Department. Meeting with your neighbors allows us to have more geolocated participation. We have spent more than 5,000 hours meeting with neighbors, government officials have spent, and all the city has been visited at least 3, 4, 5 times now. Thematic talks, we have gained more than 125 talks that have been carried out in the city. We have more than 50,000 people that have been part of these meets with famous people from theater, music, health, security, and other areas. And meet with the police, it's having taken place for more than 6 years, is still very popular. We have many people that every month wants to participate. We have made more than 50 editions, and we have more than 7,000 people participating of these meetings. About citizen participation, I'm going to give you quick reviews about this project named 66 Square. So this was a project where a private company neighborhood, the neighbors made a network, they stopped that project, they get the government to get involved into that, and we offer different devices of citizen participation to see what people wanted to do in that land. First of all, we got co-creation meetings to listen to the people and to make a diagnosis about what was happening. We gave them maps, scale maps, to see what was happening, and then to ask them what suggestions do they have for that land. Then we do an informative meeting to tell them after 7 months or so, okay, this is the project that we are going to do here. We are going to do a huge square because you are asking for more green spaces. Then we did BA experiences. We invited people to see how the construction work was held. Then when the construction work was finished, we do a votation. What name do you want for that square? The name that won was Plaza de los Vecinos, and that will be Neighborhood Square, Neighbor Square, sorry. And after that, we do an inauguration event. When the construction was finished, we show them a lot of varieties of different trees that were planted. We also put chargers for mobile phones. We put aerobic posts, and all that started here at the co-creation meetings with the neighbors' suggestions. And then to finish, we have two more experiences, children playgrounds and volunteers. Children playgrounds, what we did here was work with tiles. We asked the tiles what playgrounds would they like to have, which was the ideal playground for the squares that they live next to. The children came with their parents, and we do different dynamics, for example, giving them some emojis to see if they were happy or sad about the different games that they are in a playground. And also we asked them to draw the ideal playground. This was something very important for urban transformation, for child participation. We also won a prize here for this, and to have a better use of this public space. More than 600 of participants here. And the last one, volunteers. So we did in 2021 an agreement with United Nations. Every person that wants to be a volunteer, every citizen, for example, in plantation, because we plant a lot of trees, or even when here it's cold, it is winter, sorry, we have a volunteering project for people that lives on the street, and we ask people to come and to prepare with us all the kits that we are giving to those people. All that is certified by the United Nations, and people that likes to do volunteering appreciates a lot to have on their resume a sign of United Nations. That will be all. Sorry for the quick speaking.
Great, thanks a lot. Eddie, if you want to take the word and open the participation of the areas of Auckland City Council.
Sounds good. Thank you, Hernan. To those of us that are not in Buenos Aires, can you just quickly check your camera on, give them a nice wave, or give them a love heart or a reaction from below? What I did want to say, Hernan, to you and your fabulous team is muchas gracias. I do appreciate that the lingua franca there in Argentina is Espanol, but you've taken the time to speak English to us, so we really, really appreciate that. A big thank you from those of us around the world. If you have joined us, say 10, 15 minutes after the introduction, I just really want to say hello to you and thank you for taking the time to join. We had the fabulous Mindy Lebret from the Kettering Foundation based in Midwest USA give introductory remarks. We have the Vice President of the Foundation, Maxine Thomas, joining us from Japan. We've got colleagues of the Foundation that are joining us as well. And we've also got former fellows all across the world. So we've got Guatemala that's here. Thank you, Gustavo. We also have Brazil that's here. Thank you, Leonardo, and so on and so forth. Later on, we might see Ghana, we might see South Africa. The point that I want to make is the work of democracy relies on everybody. The stuff that we're doing in engagement here in New Zealand, they're also doing around the world. So I just wanted to say a special thank you to not only my colleagues who are presenting today, my colleagues across the council-controlled organizations that are here, but also there are people that Buenos Aires, for your information, in Kettering. There are people here on this call from the community of practice of local government or councils across New Zealand. So I wanted to say good morning and thank you to you all. This is an international call, so it's up to you, my Coney-headed colleagues. You can say Buenos noches, you can say Buenos tardes, you can say whatever you want, because somewhere in the world it is Buenos something. Our first speaker today from Auckland Council is Pamela Jamieson. She's from International Relations. Will be followed by the Youth Empowerment team, represented by the beautiful, the lovely Rachel Turner. Then we've got the Demographic Advisory Panels, represented or presented by Sister Victoria Wicks-Brown, who is incredible at what she does. And then we'll round off with the Watercare Citizens Assembly, which will be presented by Campbell Guy and Julia Butler. Now, my colleagues here in New Zealand, there is less grace for you because English is your first language. So I will be hard and fast at 10 minutes because what we want to do is give time for our colleagues that are on the call to ask questions both of Buenos Aires and here in New Zealand. Now, Pamela, I'm going to share the screen for you and take it away when you are ready.
Thank you, Eddie. Hello, everyone. My name is Pamela Jameson, and I'm with Auckland Council's.
Sound is not great.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Pamela Jameson, and I'm with Auckland Council's International Relations team. As New Zealand's largest and only global city, Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland is connected internationally and engages with a wide range of external partners and stakeholders for the economic, social, environmental, and cultural prosperity of Aucklanders. So for the long-term well-being of our communities and benefits to the region, we need to remain internationally relevant and connected. Through our international engagement, we've built up global networks and initiatives, and we're very pleased to share our experience with those of you who are participating on this call today. Next, thanks, Eddie. Auckland is growing. Our population is now 1.65 million and predicted to grow to 2.4 by 2050. We are responsible for 40% of the country's GDP and have over 180 ethnicities. In fact, 42% of Aucklanders were born overseas. Next, thank you. In 2010, Auckland amalgamated with 8 councils to establish Auckland Council and became the largest local authority in Australia with a shared governance model with the local boards that generates global interest. We have approximately 40 billion New Zealand dollars in assets and 3 billion in annual revenue with a headcount of over 7,000 employees. Next. COVID-19 has affected all of us, but in an international sense, it has created many additional imaginary and literal barriers. These have been significantly more challenging than those that existed before, challenges which we've all worked so hard to break down over the years through the forging of mutually trusted and respected relationships. Here in the IR team, we've stayed focused over the last 2 years, maintaining councils city to city and country partnerships in a very virtual sense. We're pleased to be reconnecting with the world now that we have the ability to do so physically, with our borders being fully open. Next, thanks, Eddie. Our unique Maori identity, significant Polynesian populations, and culturally diverse communities are our highly valued points of difference in the world. They attract international attention and visitors. The priorities for Auckland Council include supporting a thriving Maori economy where marae, the community meeting houses, are centres of excellence, encouraging a bilingual Tamaki Makaurau, promoting our unique Maori culture, advancing Maori well-being and potential for Maori youth, and ensuring Maori are active partners and participants at all levels of Council's decision-making. As these images on the screen show, Maori culture is incorporated into many aspects of the work done by the International Relations team, including the practice of manaakitanga, which means respect and generosity, and these qualities are reflected in our being hospitable, warm, and welcoming hosts to visiting delegations. Next. Our next slide is a map of our international partnerships. Auckland has 18 international formal city-to-city and city-to-country partnerships. The international relations team manages these relationships on behalf of Auckland Council's governing body. Beyond our formal partnerships, Auckland engages with comparable cities around the world to share knowledge and best practice, collaborate strategically, and promote business connectivity. Next, thanks, Eddie. In order to raise the profile of Auckland for our global partnerships, in 2014, the Tripartite Economic Alliance between Auckland, Guangzhou in China, and the city of Los Angeles was launched for a period of 3 years. This alliance was a world first that sent a new benchmark for city engagement and collaboration. The alliance focuses on increasing trade and investment within the 3 cities, and it also aims to deepen political and civic engagement. Since 2014, the alliance has strengthened Auckland's connections and visibility with these 2 significant markets, and it has also gained national and international recognition. So in 2020, the 3 cities agreed to a 3rd extension of the alliance for a further 2 years. Next, thank you. Given Auckland's location, airlinks are crucial to increasing our engagement with the rest of the world. In July this year, Auckland hosted a reception to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the sister city relationship between Auckland and Los Angeles. And as you'll see on the screen, a congratulatory video from the outgoing Mayor of LA, Eric Garcetti, was a highlight of the evening. Los Angeles was in fact Auckland's first ever sister city partnership, and there were already air links between Auckland and LA that were the initial driver of the relationship. Air links have also been put back on the agenda of business councils and exporters here in Auckland lately. The Southern Link places New Zealand in the middle of a global value chain connecting Asia and South America, generating growth in trade, tourism, and export opportunities. Transiting via New Zealand offers the shortest air route between many major cities on the 2 continents, and discussions are being held on how to harness this opportunity. So many of you will know probably that during the pandemic, Auckland was used as a refueling stop for special Aerolíneas Argentinas cargo flights between Buenos Aires and Shanghai. Next, thanks, Eddie. Our sister city partnership with Guangzhou is the longest and strongest in China. So to mark the 30th anniversary of this relationship, in 2019, Auckland Council, together with Guangzhou City, hosted a Chinese lacquer painting exhibition entitled Dialogue of Friendship in the Language of Colours. Influenced and inspired by Maori culture during a visit to New Zealand, a Chinese lacquer artist returned to China and applied an 8,000-year-old Chinese art form of lacquer point painting to a new interpretation of Maori design. His work met with great acclaim in China, and as a result, he and 14 lacquer painting artists took part in an exhibition at Auckland's Pa Homestead that reinforced the friendship between our 2 countries. Also in celebration of the 30 years of collaboration between Auckland and Guangzhou, our team compiled a commemorative photo album entitled Building Bridges, intended as a reminder of our past cooperation and a wish that both cities will continue to build on the already strong connections in the years ahead. Engagement with local and international communities is always a focus for our team. Just prior to the start of the COVID pandemic, International Relations hosted a lunch at Auckland Town Hall to celebrate International Women's Day, and Dr. Anita Sands, a US-based Fulbright scholar, was our guest speaker. Underlying her presentation, focusing on the advancement of women, was the importance of diversity. For Anita, diversity and inclusion are solutions, not problems. The audience reflected on this celebration of diversity with women attending from across the council group, the consular corps, academic institutions, central government, and local community and business groups, who were all on board with Dr. San's message that a diverse set of perspectives was needed around the negotiating table to solve today's problems. We also recently hosted a series of lunchtime webinars as a way of connecting and getting back to what we do. Topics range from the New Zealand-China relationship, construction and demolition waste disposal, exchange opportunities with Busan in Korea, and Brisbane in Australia spoke of their plans to co-host the 2023 FIFA Women's World Cup and the 2032 Olympics. Yes, they were virtual seminars, but one step at a time. The third image on the screen is members of the Henderson Massey Local Board, local community representatives, and the Maryland student delegation from Kakagawa City, Japan. This was taken at Auckland's Japanese Garden, gifted by Kakagawa, on the occasion of the 25th anniversary of the Auckland-Kakagawa sister city relationship. So for our team, it's all about building, maintaining, and embracing relationships and the ongoing power of them. Next slide. So in terms of celebrating our international engagement last month, we held an exhibition in the foyer of Auckland Council to celebrate our 18 international partnerships. Pieces of art, interesting artifacts, and digital content all showed the vibrancy and breadth of the partners Auckland Council has across the world. So now that many borders are reopening, we look forward to playing our part to ensure Auckland reconnects with international communities. This webinar is an excellent step towards building a global network. So thank you, Buenos Aires, for hosting us today. It's been a pleasure to share with you our experience around collaborative engagement with local communities and international colleagues. Moving forward, we hope our connections and dialogue with you and other cities who joined this global network initiative. Gracias.
Muchas gracias. Thank you, Pamela. Over to you now, Rachel. Thank you very much.
Kia ora. I'm Rachel Turner. I have the great privilege of managing the Youth Empowerment Team. And our goal is for Tāmaki Makaurau, Auckland, to be a city where all young people thrive. A city that is designed with them, that considers their perspective and is focused on the future. Auckland's a really young city. 1/3 of our population is under the age of 24, and 1/3 of that live in our highest deprivation areas. The last 3 years have disproportionately impacted our young people. We already had a mental health crisis, and this is now worsened with the young people's cloak, their usual cloak of protective factors of connections to friends, engagement in school, higher education or employment, living active lifestyles, and giving back to communities in ways that is meaningful to them. They've been really eroded through this pandemic, along with massive pressure on our health and education system to respond to this increased and kind of shifted need. As a local government, we don't run clinical mental health health services, but we do have really many levers that contribute to well-being. So our focus is listening to the lived experience of young people, creating ways in our incredibly complex system that they can be active contributors, designing solutions to the problems that they face. I would argue that young people are not apathetic or disengaged on issues that matter to them, but rather they don't really see a place for their voice in local government or how we can partner with them to create change. Ultimately, in our work and many other people's work, we found 4 things that can support meaningful engagement with rangatahi or young people. Connection. The relationship is paramount, and actually many of our Buenos Aires colleagues have talked about this. A young person is less likely to tell you what they really think without a relationship built on trust, and key to this is our ability to listen. Meaningful. The issue needs to matter to them. Hot topics at the moment being transport, climate change, well-being, their mental health, and employment. Decision-making. They need to actually be able to influence decision-making, to be involved right from the beginning, not just a tokenistic tick box at the end. And shared power. Well, this is tricky. It's really tricky to achieve in our local government structure. So building in mentors or support people that can bridge the relationships and advocate when necessary is essential. I'd just like to share with you 3 ways that we partner with young people to hear their voices. We have a youth council model. It's a really traditional model. We have 21 local boards across Auckland, and 14 of these local boards have chosen to invest in a youth council or youth board. Groups of unpaid young people passionate about active citizenship and their local area. These young people support the elected members to understand what the issues for young people are. They give feedback on their local plans, they make submissions, and they use funding to create movements in their area. An example of their ability to mobilise was during the early stages of the pandemic. There was lots of hesitancy around immunisations, and misinformation was really confusing the issue. So the youth councils created space, albeit online, for young people to hear from politicians and experts, to understand the issue more fully and make decisions for themselves. Many of our young people in our really diverse city are the translators in their families. So they were empowered to support their wider family with accurate information to support the decision-making of the family. Many of the youth councils are actively supporting mental wellbeing activities, bringing young people together, holding webinars and sessions to discuss strategies to use during high-stress times, particularly around exams. We find that when there is an active youth council in an area, the quality and number of submissions on council plans increases significantly. So the advantage of this model, well, it works best when there is regular contact between the elected members, the council officials, and the young people. This collapses that power imbalance, it helps the relationships, and it builds trust, and the young people feel that they really matter. These young people often have links into local schools and groups. They're able to tap into these spaces and activate initiatives, seek feedback, and really mobilise around particular issues. Elected members and council officials have an easily accessible group of young people, test ideas, seek feedback from. We have a large group of young people interested and experienced in local government. It's an excellent space in which for us to recruit into council. Challenges. Well, some groups are not as diverse as their communities are. That leaves some voices unheard. Young people are busy, they're not paid, and there is a limit on their availability. The groups can be over-consulted and only brought in at the end of a process rather than co-designing solutions. Young people age out. There's a constant focus on recruitment and succession planning. As with all initiatives that involve young people, consistent support from staff who have expertise in youth development is required. So another model we're also trialling at the moment is a deliberative democracy pilot. We're trialling this process in 2 of our local board areas. One area is actually in our central city area. It's a collective of youth organisations and young people engaged through these organisations rather than a formal youth council. And the other area is an active youth council. They're working in really innovative ways to create solutions for quite intense social issues. The question we're interested in answering and getting feedback on is how can we make council places and services better able to support youth wellbeing? We're in the planning phase now and we hope to roll this out early next year. So what are some advantages of this? Well, young people have the opportunity to really understand the issue, to work together with subject matter experts on what this means for them, to share their lived experience and to design solutions and advice. It's a model that can bridge the gap between young people and decision makers. It offers a platform for young people to engage in the learning process as equal citizens and proactive leaders. It's an opportunity to help shape updated guidelines about how to engage with youth. And it's an opportunity to refresh how our youth voice groups connect with local boards, and particularly to feed into local board planning engagement processes. So what are our challenges? Well, again, are we getting a really diverse group of young people? The time needed for the process and the limited availability of young people. The cost, we need to pay the young people for their time and their contribution. And ensuring that this advice is incorporated into decision making. We really need this change to come about so that young people feel like they've been heard. So a third model we're giving a go as well is supported by my colleagues in the Community and Social Innovation Department. It's kind of born from a youth lab concept. It was originally a 12-week design thinking program from young people, a crash course in communication, collaboration, problem solving, bringing a rangatahi or young person's view to Auckland's challenges. The first challenge they tackled was a citywide problem around a polluted stream. The young people interviewed their peers and brought their co-design expertise to the development of an intergenerational strategy to regenerate the stream. This was finally signed off earlier this year. As a result of this, the 4 designers, the young people, have actually been employed by Auckland Council, and now their unit that we call Te Taifanga Rangatahi has been working on the key question, how do we get rangatahi Māori and Pasifika into well-paid jobs in the environment sector? It's a question that could have gone to consultants from outside the area, but why not give it to those who know young people best? The initiative is designed to hear the voices of young Māori and Pasifika, and so to have young people themselves leading this co-design process, supported by mentors, is the magic of the initiative. It means the relationships are genuine and barriers are more easily removed. As a consequence, the feedback, advice, and design solutions given from young people are more rich and insightful. So the advantages: relationships and trust is easily developed. It's easier to understand the perspectives of young people and how they want things to change. Employing rangatahi at council demonstrates to other people that this is a place that they too could work. This helps with including the diversity of thought and perspectives that young people bring to all levels of the organisation. But there are some challenges. It's a really high touch model. It requires skilled mentors to work with the rangatahi, the young people, to ensure their well-being is not compromised. It's not a quick fix. It takes investment in time and a commitment to a process that is led by the young people. And there are conscious and unconscious biases on the value young people bring to a workplace that need to be managed. And council processes are not always set up to support the integration of young people into the workplace. In New Zealand, there's a real groundswell of interest to consulting with young people. Many organisations and government departments are recognising the value their perspective brings. But are we really changing the way we interact with them? Are we actually handing over power and decision-making to them? With young people, there's an inherent intersectionality. There's a fusion of age, culture, gender identity, perspective, and their credibility isn't defined by length of experience or age. They bring creativity and hope, and they also bring a demand. If it's about us, not without us. Cities need to be imagined with young people. They're their cities too, and they are not the inheritors or the leaders of tomorrow. They're the leaders now, and we need to respond to this or we'll miss out and become irrelevant. So that's my challenge as leading this youth empowerment team. We're really striving to work out how can we do this differently and make Auckland Council a place that can lead a city to be a place where all young people thrive. Kia ora. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Rachel. That was fantastic. In the interest of time, Hernan, if it's all right with you, what I might get is I will ask people, if you've got a question, pop it in the chat now. Hernan will pick 2. I will pick 2 and we'll ask them to the respective presenters, but throw as many questions as you like in the chat. Hernan and I will make sure that the relative speakers are put in touch with you, that materials are shared, and that all your questions are answered. But I want to make sure that we get to the questions. So if you've got questions, pop them in the chat now. Hernan and I will pick 2 each at the end of the presentations. Next up, I want to call on the Principal Advisor for the Demographic Advisory Panels, Victoria Wicks-Brown. The floor is yours.
Kia ora, thank you, Eddie, and thank you, everybody. I've really enjoyed listening to these presentations today. I've already learned a lot and I've been very highly inspired. I appreciate that we don't have that much time, so I'm actually just going to rock on through very quickly and give a quick overview of Auckland Council's advisory panels. We have 6 demographic advisory panels: disability, ethnic peoples, Pacific peoples, rainbow communities, seniors, youth. I hope that's 6. We also have 3 sector panels supporting communities of interest: rural community, a heritage advisory panel, and a city centre advisory board. I look after all of them, but today I'm just going to focus on the demographic advisory panels. And so why we have them, they're a key engagement mechanism between Auckland Council and diverse communities. And we're a little bit unusual here at Auckland. We have our own governing legislation. So when all our different city councils were amalgamated, we got a local government Auckland Council Act, and in it gave unique powers to our mayor, and that our mayor has the power and the responsibility to establish processes and mechanisms whereby Auckland Council engages with the people of Aucklanders, and particularly to engage in areas where there might be a particular interest, for example, ethnic, geographic, cultural. And so since 2010, we've separated our general engagement with the mayor, who cannot delegate this power or responsibility, and the model that we alighted on and has been proved to be successful over the past 4 terms and now going into our 5th term is an advisory panel model. So it's one of the ways that we comply with our legislative requirements, but it also helps us take on the challenges of super diversity, which Pamela referred to in her remarks. The panel's purpose is that they provide strategic advice to the mayor, to the governing body, which is our councillors and the mayor, to the organisation itself, and to our council-controlled organisations from a regional strategic point of view. So it can be very high level, but it's important, and they're involved right at the beginning of the process when the system is working optimally, and it means they're giving that advice, they're feeding into that policy and strategy development. So it's been elected members can have the benefit of that advice ahead of strategies actually being developed up. They also give us advice on the best ways to effectively engage with diverse communities, and they can also raise any issues of particular concern or interest to their community. So it's a pretty wide brief, which is set out in the terms of reference. Members are appointed every 3 years by the mayor and endorsed by our governing body. They're not elected and they're not representative, but they are there to provide, through the lens of their lived experience, that strategic advice and feedback at the very highest levels. So they have a seat at the table with the mayor and with the governing body. We have an open process in terms of recruitment. So we're just starting a new year, a new electoral term now. So we are shortly going to be going out recruiting for our demographic advisory panels. We get huge interest from across the city. At the last term, we had over 600 applicants for about 50 roles. And we are selecting them not on necessarily their connection in with particular community groups, but they do often tend to be leaders in those spaces as well. But mainly it's more through that ability to be able to provide advice on strategies and policies and plans. And another key part of our recruitment is that on each panel, except our Pacific Peoples Advisory Panel and our Ethnic Peoples Advisory Panel, is that we have members with lived experience of Te Ao Māori world, and knowledge of contemporary issues facing Māori communities. So our panels are supported through a very dynamic matrix structure here at Council. I'm employed to look after the panel and manage the panel program, but we rely very heavily on a series of volunteers who are very passionate about the work and the mahi, the work of the panels. The mayor appoints a chief liaison councillor. Each panel themselves have an elected member, a liaison councillor, and then we have lead officers who are volunteers at the very senior level, people like Eddie, who are sitting in on meetings that we hold every 6 weeks and providing strategic advice. We also have governance advisors supporting in terms of secretariat support. setting up meetings, taking minutes, and making sure that actions are flow out through the organisation. And then we also have a comms team who also support the panels. So our panels, as I mentioned before, we engage with them through a formal meeting structure. We're looking to actually make this less formal, because we found that this is where the really rich conversations happen in a more informal environment, rather than a formal meeting structure where appointed members don't actually have decision-making capabilities. They're just providing us advice. This is something that's built on a relationship of trust, ongoing conversations, rather than just tactical interactions. We run a series of open and closed workshops. We have cross-panel opportunities, and this is what's really valued by our panel members. Rachel mentioned that intersectionality. So, for example, with our youth advisory panel, they are incredibly interested in what's going on with the thoughts and work streams of the Rainbow Communities Advisory Panel or our Disability Advisory Panel. So those cross-panel groups is where we're seeing real value in terms of the quality and the calibre of the advice that's coming back to our staff to be incorporated into these plans and strategies. And they really are the most valued. So just in closing, in terms of how the organisations believe the panels help us go about our work, one councillor said to me recently, you're getting really good value talking to the subset of communities. You always have them as a connector, then it's achieving what it's set out to be. They're a great resource. Staff talk about challenging and providing contrasting views, really challenging our thinking on the work that we're developing. Why are we doing things? Why are we doing them that way? Why are we taking this approach? And then another staff member was talking about, it's not the facts and the figures that get decisions, it's actually the human side. And that's what the panels bring to these very complex issues that we are dealing with. I think I'm out of time, Eddie. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're amazing. Tēnā rawa te koe. Thank you very much, Victoria. And it is indeed very important work that you do, bringing the voice of Aucklanders authentically through the demographic advisory panels and outside our other formal procedures and processes that we have. It is now my privilege and pleasure indeed to turn over the virtual floor to Campbell Guy and Julia Butler, who will be talking to us about an incredibly exciting first of its kind in New Zealand assembly that they worked on very recently. So without further ado, Campbell and Julia.
Thank you, Eddie. Buenas noches, tēnā koutou katoa. Hello all. My name is Julia Butler, and my colleague Campbell Guy and I are policy advisors in the Community and Social Policy Department here at Auckland Council. And today we will be speaking to a citizens' assembly that we undertook with Watercare, who are a council-controlled organisation who oversee Auckland's water services. As Mindy noted in her introductory address, threats to democracy globally are real and palpable, and deliberative democracy offers a compelling solution to address the emergence of the democratic deficit, this divide that we're seeing between democratic ideals and reality that's causing dissatisfaction, disillusionment, and a lack of engagement with democratic systems. Deliberative methods are also situated within this broader discourse that we're seeing about the changing role of the citizen from voter to customer and now to co-creator in some instances. These processes are focused on creating fair and representative conditions for people to come together and address some of the most pressing political and policy problems. They're centred on something around collective decision-making, which views decisions as legitimate to the extent that the views of those potentially affected have been considered through an extensive process of public reasoning. And notably, particularly important, is that deliberative democratic processes sit on the empower end of the IAP2 spectrum, which, as seen on the screen, is a framework developed by the International Association of Public Participation and is designed to assist with the selection of the level of participation that defines the public's role in any public participation process. So notably on the empower end of the spectrum, the final decision making is placed in the hands of the public. It's really imperative right at the outset before we jump into this case study to understand where this democratic innovation sits in relation to existing practice. So I saw there was a question about participatory democracy in the chat. And notably, these forms of democracy are not antithetical in practice and can be used in conjunction, but they do have some distinctive aspects to them. In terms of number of participants, deliberative democracy values depth over breadth. So it's focused on smaller but more intentionally representative groups of people. In terms of the type of participation, deliberative democracy is focused more on preference transformation as opposed to preference aggregation. So it's a talk-centric model that requires that participants are well informed and consider different perspectives before arriving at collective judgment, or consensus is often the term that's used there. In terms of participant selection method, deliberative democracy uses something called sortition, which is random selection and stratification, which forms an assembly that is representative of the public. A deliberative method was chosen for a particular question around the future of Auckland's water supply based on the criteria below. The OECD identifies that the questions that are most suitable for deliberative methods are those which are complex in nature, requiring difficult trade-offs, value-driven dilemmas, and then notably for this particular issue, long-term issues that go beyond short-term electoral cycles and could be susceptible to influence there. And particularly notable for those on this call today, the OECD 2020 stocktake of deliberative processes notes that 52% of these processes globally have been undertaken at a local level. So there is a lot of potential for us on this call to be using these methods. The toolkit of deliberative democracy is nascent and wide-ranging and constantly developing, but broadly falls into these four categories. Firstly, we have informed citizen recommendations on a policy question, which is what we'll be talking to today. Secondly, citizen opinions on policy questions. So these are more agenda setting in nature, testing how the public react to policy ideas given sufficient time and access to information. Thirdly, informed citizen evaluation of ballot measures, which are often used as a complement to referenda, such as that seen in Oregon. And then lastly, but not least, are permanent deliberative bodies, so institutionalised citizens' assemblies or panels, which can set an agenda, monitor government programs of work. I will now pass over to Campbell to speak to our case study to the Citizens' Assembly with water care. Gracias. Thanks, Campbell.
Gracias, Cora. Thank you very much, Julia. So I'll just quickly explain the Citizens Assembly model behind the water care. So as Julia did mention, it falls in the first basket. So it is a Citizens Assembly where a representative sample of Aucklanders. In this case, we chose to stratify based on age, gender, ethnicity, home ownership, and education. And about 30 to 40 people were randomly selected, and over 4 to 5 days, they deliberated amongst themselves over a complex question regarding water. And at the end of this, they produced detailed recommendations, which were taken on by the Water Care's Board of Directors. So there was a mandate associated with this process. So I'll just quickly go into the question. So the question that we gave the Citizens Assembly was, what should the next source of water be for Auckland? So come 2040, Auckland will have increasing growing population, and we would need to find a new source of water. Water Care, aware of this problem, was looking at how to engage Aucklanders on such a complex issue and how to get feedback which they could actually action. COI2, the Centre for Informed Futures, which is a think tank based off Auckland University and a research centre, then partnered with Water Care to help answer this question and came to the conclusion that a Citizens Assembly would probably be the best way to address this and engage with the public meaningfully. So what makes this different? As Julia alluded to, it used sortition, so random selection was used to recruit participants. Participants had time and access to experts to engage in the question. It was a complicated question, and they needed to understand the background of water in Auckland and climate change and resilience in order to engage in the question in a meaningful way. And there was a mandate from the Water Care Board of Directors that the recommendations would be acted upon. So quickly explaining, I've already alluded to this earlier, but key criteria that we looked at during the question was resilience. So how could the water supply be resilient to changes in temperature that are brought along with climate change? And how environmentally responsible is this new source of water? What are the impacts or externalities that you could expect with a new source of water? And the reality of a growing population and the existence of other frameworks. So the water care strategy, the water strategy that which Auckland Council also has produced. And so this is just a photo from the assembly of the CEO of Water Care, John Lamont, talking to the assembly members on the first day, explaining the mandate, explaining why the question is so important, and really getting that buy-in from the very highest level of water care there. It was quite a powerful way to start the assembly, and it really encouraged meaningful deliberation. So alluding quite similar to previous presentations, this was a very complex idea, so we used a lot of pictures and infographics to convey this information. Koitu set up a website as well, which was open access, which we've released to the public after this assembly, explaining all the interviews with experts that we had, all the transcripts from all of the deliberations and all the sessions and the themes and the workshops that we did over the 5 days. And so this is just an example of how to explain something quite complex. The diagram on the right shows where Auckland gets its water from. And these kind of basic realities, a lot of Aucklanders aren't aware of. So just kind of bringing them along the journey was quite important during the process. And then this is another example of how we had to explain complex ideas, such as the idea of peak demand, where, as we see, as the years progress, we'll require more water during the summer months. Obviously, yeah, Southern Hemisphere as well, it should be the same, but the reality of climate change and how it is affecting water supply, and really trying to explain that these complex ideas impact people at a very local level, and how an assembly like this, having the time to explain these ideas and put it in a way that it's easy for members of the public to understand and engage with. So here's an example of how we facilitated dialogue during the assembly. So we had a catch box that was thrown around during the assembly, almost like a talking stick, and agreed upon principles that were collectively agreed upon by the assembly as a whole about how they should engage with each other, how mutual respect should carry on throughout the assembly, how all opinions should be valued and listened to. This is quite a key part of ensuring that the dialogue was genuine. And Lee, our main facilitator, who's seen in the photo, was a professional in this regards and really helped guide the assembly members throughout the question. So yeah, as Eddie alluded to, we have finished the assembly. Actually, a few weeks ago, we just had a meeting with the Water Care Board, and they've agreed to take on the recommendations for direct recycled water for Auckland come 2040, and they will be actioning that recommendation. And so here's an example of some recent media publications about the future of water and how it filters all the way down to the local level, and how it is quite a universal issue that affects everyone. And so it was important to kind of explain why we did this and let the public know that there was reason behind this decision, as opposed to just saying that we decided behind closed doors. And so here's the assembly at the end. This is Auckland in one room, so it was quite magic seeing it at the end. These are all Aucklanders that come from all walks of life, all professions. We had, scientists all the way down to different, all walks of life, all advertising executives, to people who lay the drains that actually work for water care as well, or in relation to water care. So they all came together, and it was quite a magical experience to see. And so it's something that we learned throughout the process was that the type of feedback that we got was far more useful or suited to this question than a simple survey where you would ask. So Watercare did conduct surveys, and they would see questions of, why don't you just build another dam? And these types of questions, well, they were able to extract information, which was very useful. It was a complicated process, and it was very hard to boil down this information. So starting early was a big part of the planning process, starting at least 7 months early, 8 months early to collect this materials. And the question was very well suited to this type of process. So acknowledging that there are many different types of deliberative processes, and this question in particular was very well suited to the first bucket, but there are other types of questions which may be suited better to 2 or 3 or 4, depending on the situation and depending on the nature of the question itself and the stakeholder interactions. So I know I probably got a bit over time. So yeah, there are the details. And if you're interested in the assembly, you can visit the Complex Conversation website hosted by Koitu. I'll pass on to you, Eddie.
Muchas gracias. Thank you so much, Campbell and Julia. Fantastic work, and very, very excited that we're able to share this assembly with colleagues, not only at the Kettering Foundation, but also in Buenos Aires and around the world. Adnan, I see that there's something in the chat there. How would you like to handle the questions that are in there? We've got about 13 minutes, and then maybe we should hand back to Mindy if she's got any final wrap-up thoughts. Over to you, Adnan.
Well, I think that what we can do, we have these 2 questions in the chat. We can read them, so the panel can answer. If anyone else has another question, please raise your hands in the Zoom tool for that, so we can check you and give you a moment to open the mic and make a question. And then we go back to Mindy. As Eddie said, we have a lot to talk, and the only thing I'm sure after all this is that we have a lot to work for the following days and to decide what are the next steps, because there's a lot going on in the 2 cities, more than 2 cities actually, because we have more than that, and that we have to decide how to process all this information, all the experiences, and how to share it better. So this is just the beginning. I think we have these few minutes for conversation, but we can work on this later. So we have James, but actually I think for what you said, it is Veronica. Eddie, is that right? Question? And Prida, is that right?
Yep, that's right.
Great. So won't you open the mic and in this order, formulate your questions and who is it addressed to? And then they can answer. It was first Veronica and then Prida, please.
Kia ora, I'm Veronica Spittle. I'm a senior policy analyst in a semi-rural local authority in the South Island of New Zealand, and I guess I never really thought about disinformation very much until we had the COVID pandemic, and then I saw our small rural community or semi-rural community having protests. We're seeing it now with climate change between the farmers and other people, and I'm just wondering, there's a lot of disinformation and how you actually manage to get a reasonable, a well-informed debate going when people are getting information from all different sources.
So do you have any preference who to address your comment?
No.
Okay. Well, and the following question from Prida, isn't it?
Yeah. Shall I? Do you want me to talk about my ask my question, Herman? Yep. Okay. Sorry, I am having technical issues. My camera is not working this morning. I just want to acknowledge firstly Rachel as well from the Auckland team, who mentioned about the work that her team is doing around youth empowerment. And I was fascinated to hear about your project, Tamara, where you mentioned one of the action plans that you've recently worked on or working on around making public documents, more inclusive or more in plain speak, so as to speak. And did I get it right when you sort of had it on the screen that you were able to include kids and teenagers as well in that conversation? I just wanted to understand how you were able to achieve that.
Okay, so we have a general question from Veronica and a very targeted, addressed question from Prida to Tamara. Anyone that wants to answer the comment about disinformation? Very briefly.
Veronica, I put something.
Hernan, if you want.
Yes, Antonella.
From the point of view of citizen participation, I think the best way to balance the people that is uninformed is what I was talking about, using every tool that you have. Because the audience, the citizens are very different. So it's not the same a person of 18 years old or a person of 60 years old. We have to understand what that audience is looking for. So probably someone that is 60 years old will like to come to a meeting. If he or she is uninformed, then we should offer the possibility to have a meeting with an official from the government or with people from the area that it's going to design a public policy and to have the information from the first hand. And if it's a person that it's a young person, then we can invite that person to a meeting, but it's not an informative meeting. It's a co-creation meeting. And we use different ways like creative and innovative with young people that we know that they like and that they will probably give us their point of view if we use them. Like what I explained with playgrounds, that was children, but that we use dynamics that reach young people. So I think that the answer is to have a wide variety of devices to offer the audience that you want to get well informed. Thank you, Hernan.
Great, Antonella. And Tamara?
Yes. Hi, Petra. Well, the thing is that there are two different commitments. One about plain language, and the other one is about children and teenager participation. The first one, we are trying to, in Buenos Aires, there are some initiatives about plain language, but in the justice. So now we are trying to bring the same principles of plain language to the executive power and to the parliament. We're working in a coalition with both branches of the state to develop first some guidelines for the different areas of the government which are in charge of do normatives or implement some not only decrees but also like how to say like trámites, like demanding from the citizens.
The paperwork, administrative paperwork.
Right. Thank you. Yeah. And the first part is to have these guidelines, but we are working too with civil society to better understand which are the most difficult administrative work for the public. So this is one of the commitments. And the other one is about children participation, that in fact we are working with Antonella's team to work about different demandings of the children or to understand, to better understand and to improve the work with children in the open government vision. But there are different projects. And if you have any other questions, please, you can email me after the meeting.
Perfect. Thanks, Tamara.
I don't know if we have any raised hand. I don't see anyone. Just a quick comment for Veronica's question about disinformation. I think that's one of the key areas. I think all of us working on the public conversation should address. I think it goes hand in hand with the phenomenon of extreme polarization, which is political, but it is also cultural. And at least for us in our program, but I think it's something we share, creating safe spaces for conversations in which people who normally in other environments, such as, of course, social networks, but also maybe other environments more politicized, more antagonistic, could go for hardcore, shut-down conversations, can have other kinds of conversation. We have an internal joke here. We normally serve coffee with milk and croissants in our meetings. And what we say always is it's very difficult to make a huge speech, political speech, when we are having café con leche con medias lunas, as we say. It's difficult. You have to have a normal conversation. You can't have a very confrontative things when you are having a coffee with another person on your side. And that's just a metaphor of creating spaces in which also disinformation is useless, because civility makes disinformation useless. And I think that there's something that we try to reach in our work here. I don't know if anyone else from the presenters wants to do any remark before Eddie and Eddie, come on.
Gracias, Hernan. What I really wanted to say is Veronica asks a very good question, and it's one that I think you've addressed very well, Hernan. One thing that I noticed there in Buenos Aires is deliberative methods and more participatory methods are things that the government of the city of Buenos Aires is doing, and is doing well. But I think the important thing that needs to be said is that I recall, correct me if I'm wrong, Hernan, but it's about a 20-year journey from when you first talked about this stuff with Professor Saba to now having dedicated teams. And in the same roundabout way, Veronica, it's not kind of a thing that we can fix overnight, because you're absolutely right. People with real fixed views, with potentially extremist views, you can't de-radicalize or fix that overnight. What it does require is a concerted effort for us to keep doing it, and doing it in such a way which really shows the difference between just the regular debate or the keyboard stuff that we do, bringing them into a room, setting the environment, setting the parameters, having the facts, the research, and the evidence. I'll shush up now, and Hernan, this might be a good chance to throw across to Mindy. I think she might have a question, but also final remarks. Muchas gracias to everybody. We will send out the information. Thank you so much, Hernan, and your people, and to everybody around New Zealand and the globe. Mindy.
I'll be very quick. I want to just say a word about the distrust question, or the disinformation question, I'm sorry. Disinformation in part is mitigated by the building of trust and relationship. And the work that you all are doing around transparency and open government, citizen relationships, and building community, and engaging citizens before making decisions and announcing those decisions, and really, kind of pushing people to talk together, understand each other, and come to some kind of public judgment together, is really important and very, very hard work today. And especially doing it in a way that is inclusive and respectful of people's cultures and values, and lived experiences. So I just want to say that I am just blown away by the presentations and the work, and more importantly, the work that those presentations represent. Clearly, there's been so much going on. And I think, you know, this today has made me realize that, wow, the work really is just beginning. And so now that you've started this conversation and dialogue, it'll be great to see what you all do and where it goes next. So I don't envy you. It's a big task. So thank you for letting me join you today, and congratulations on all of your hard work.
Thanks a lot, Mindy. I think Eddie and I, we are very grateful to Kettering Foundation because it was the beginning of all this conceptually, philosophically, and concretely in this activity. Maxine, I don't know if she's around, but she was a force behind it, and we count on all of you for the following steps that I think we have to work a lot. I think it's a fun job, the one we have ahead, but there is a lot of material and ideas that we have to work on, and the funny thing is to coordinate agendas with the other side of the world. So that's our next step. What do you think, Eddie?
I agree. And in the meantime, before Hernan and I come back to you, lots of coffee, lots of croissants. That's how you do the work of democracy. Muchas gracias, everybody. Thank you so much, Senor Hernan, and all your people and everybody else.
Gracias. Saludos.